Edge of Trafalgar. My name is Daniel Vallis from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian and biblical perspective. This video is a warning, but it is not a prediction. I do not know the future, but I will show you what is going on right now that demands our attention, that we be sober, we be vigilant, and we be ready. Over the past few days, I mentioned that Saturn and Mars were near the moon, drawing our attention to that, and that was just another celestial sign. But they've been around the moon for a while now, just drawing my attention. I've been noticing them. And of course, both of them have significance. We've been looking at Leo the lion and Jupiter, the king planet, and Judah the lion. But then also we have the moon, currently also a reminder too of Joshua's long day. And both of these and all these celestial signs point us back to the biblical patterns that we've been looking at. And even though we've been looking at a lot of other things too as well, particularly enemy action lately, it all goes back to the biblical perspective that we've already studied and talked about of this time of Christ's first coming and all the shadows and patterns that the Bible tells us about in this time period. And so when we examine them and study them, even before we got to this time, we were already aware of that the enemy was going to be very busy during this time, and we already knew what categories they were going to be busy in, particularly with Jacob's ladder and Joshua and time, Joshua's long day. And I told you even before we got here that we should expect to see the enemy messages along those lines, and that's what we're seeing. But our whole viewpoint goes back to the Bible, of the shadows and patterns that it tells us about, and the celestial signs that we're also watching, which is the celestial clock that Scripture gives us, and how it ties in with prophecy, and particularly the time we are at right now. We've been seeing a lot just from that. We don't need to look at anything else really, but looking at the enemy action, we see the enemy busy because they know Scripture too. They know prophecy. They know this time is very important, and we are in the footprint of Christ's first time. His first coming to fulfill prophecy was at the triumphal entry, and then he left at ascension. And this is the time we were looking for him to return the second time. In this shadow and pattern, and particularly as we get closer to the day of ascension, how we've been pointed to that pattern. The angels pointed out that pattern. Paul pointed out that pattern as well. So there's still much significance to the days ahead of us, and we see a day approaching. We see this Passover time being wrapped up. The Passover time, even though it's the 14th through the 21st, and in the first month, it's really considered to not come to full completion till Pentecost. So technically, we're still in the days of Passover because it's all a time of redemption, but particularly we're looking at Christ's first time up to ascension, and particularly in context of the barley harvest, the barley first fruits wave offering. This is a time we're looking at. We still have a number of days ahead of us still, and it looks like they're going to be even busier. Now, for those who are new to this channel and these videos, on our website we have printable material about these posters and the calendar and the celestial signs. There's a lot of resources in the Exodus 2 resource section. There's a lot of different articles that are handpicked as well. So that would be definitely the first place to look. The Exodus 2 section on our website. There's multiple resources in there. You just have to scroll on down. But there's been a lot that has been drawing our attention for the past weeks and months to this time we're at right now. So that's why we know this is a very, very important time. And our seeing the enemy action just is extra confirmation because they are acting very busily like something is going to happen now too. Because they can see the celestial signs, they can read prophecy, they know the shadows and patterns. And when we study the Bible and look at the shadows and patterns and celestial signs, that increases our faith. Now, we talked a lot about celestial signs, particularly the 5 visible planets in the first part of the year. And it was at that time that we talked about how Saturn, the etymology of its name, is related to the sickle and the harvest. And we've talked about that in conjunction with Leo the lion, which is recognized by the sickle. And then also Mars has long been associated with war, red, and destruction. So it's very interesting to see those 5 visible planets. And a lot of those celestial signs just brought us to the next step and the next step and next step, each one building on the previous signs that we had been watching. And that is what we are anticipating, a harvest and sudden destruction. We have heard the calls for peace and safety that the Bible warns about and explicit warnings of when you hear them say this, sudden destruction cometh. So it should sober us up that in addition to Leo the lion, Judah the lion, and the king planet Jupiter in the celestial signs right now counting down, there's also the addition of 2 very pertinent and related signs, Saturn and Mars, in the night sky for a duration of time as well. Again, definitely check out The Bride Goes to the King's House PDF, which summarizes a lot of this information. And we got posters talking about the patterns and shadows, particularly of the Passover time, and then how it extends to where we're at right now. And we've been looking at the enemy action, and it's been mirroring a lot of the biblical patterns because they know this is the last generation. This is the expected time frame. They know the celestial signs of when Christ is going to be gathering his people. And so they've been putting out mirror messages very closely to the biblical patterns that are going on, with Satan warning his disciples to get ready. There's about to be a revealing of the son of perdition. Now, as Christians, we're waiting for the revealing of the Son of Man, Jesus Christ. But because he's going to be a close counterfeit in many different ways, he's passing off and hitchhiking, so to speak, on a lot of the same patterns going on right now. And because he knows they are engaged. So right now, looking at the time frame, we find ourselves between May 27, 28 on the Gregorian calendar, still in Joshua's long day moon pattern, on the rabbinical calendar on day 20, and on the biblical calendar that we've been going by, the new moon sightings, we're on the 19th, and in both the rabbinical and the biblical, pretty much getting close to the end of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For them, it's their first Passover, but on the biblical calendar, it's getting close to ending out this second Passover. And we've talked a lot about red and blue and purple, the shadows and patterns, both in Scripture and what the enemy is doing today. But again, it all goes back to Scripture. It's the biblical foundation that we must always look at the world through in that perspective. And we talked about why this is so important to the big push all of a sudden for purple. And just the other day, they made a remark about how Prince is being pushed so much that his album sales have risen 42,000%. And just from April 21st alone, just all the news of people getting it out and being saturated with it in the social media and the news and everywhere. People are going out and buying it, and it's just being kept on the forefront of people's minds of Prince, 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 Prince. And the media's definitely made sure that they push home and make the connection between Prince and Apollo in honor of the beautiful one, the anointed cherub, Lucifer. And remember, he is the prince of this world, the prince of the air too as well. He is called Prince. So when they're pushing out Prince and purple, they're referring to one person. The Apollo figure that he tries to pass himself off as. And we've seen all the commemorations and prayers invoking Apollo with the Olympic torch ceremonies at this time too as well. Again, marking the victory of the Titans over the Olympians, tying back to the parable of the Titanic as well. We've seen them put up blatant warnings right on April 19th, warning their disciples that things are about to happen. And we've talked before of how we are in the last generation. So we already knew this year was going to be very important. And it was interesting to note how Leo the Lion, Judah the Lion, how it comes by every 12 years, how it landed on this last final year, and how this year it actually landed on the biblical feast dates, even though all the previous times didn't. This time we are at right now is so unique. That's why we're so excited and looking forward with high expectation that Christ's second coming will be in the shadow of his first coming, because we have a biblical perspective and we're looking at the signs that he told us about. And this is also why the enemy is very busy, because they know the signs too. They know prophecy too. So when we see the enemy suddenly jump-starting a lot of activity and really going all out on the messaging, they know what time it is. And they know things are about to change. And they know this celestial clock that's in the heavens right now, Judah, the lion, it's counting down. Time is almost up. Prophecy is about to be fulfilled. And they've been hammering multiple matching messages in just the past few days. Less than 2 weeks, multiple messages. And we're going to look at even more today. But there's so many messages that they've been laying down over the past few days and weeks, but particularly just the past few days and hours, warning their disciples that time is almost up. Time. It's all about time. Time is almost up. Do you know what time it is? And in our last video, we looked at just how in the recent X-Men Apocalypse trailer, how it matched up with the Jaguar commercial and the other Apocalypse trailer, how it had the exact same message in both of them, and then also in conjunction with the climate agreement at the UN, multiple matching messages. And there's other connections on all these. I really don't have time to illustrate them all, but we see multiple matching messages in just less than 2 weeks, multiple days, because they're reminding their disciples, hey, we are almost at the finish line. We're almost at the end of the footprint of his first coming. And they expect things to happen very soon too as well. They are waiting to be unrestrained. They don't know the day or hour. We don't either. but Scripture has given us the footprint and the pattern to look at. The first time when he came and fulfilled prophecy, he's going to be returning the day of redemption. That's what we've been looking forward to. And the enemy's been super busy with multiple messages all on the same day even, with the Empire State Building being lit red and the Phoenix and the Palm and the Palmyra all being lit up red. A warning. And they also know that Mars is in the celestial clock at this time too, being drawn attention to, because they know sudden destruction is about to come. And they were warning their disciples back in September when they installed the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on the River Thames, which is a huge picture of time and everything. And that was a forewarning. So Satan's disciples, I was giving them a heads up, 4 horsemen of apocalypse, expect further warnings of this fairly soon. And so when we come to where we are now, and there's a whole film called X-Men Apocalypse with the 4 horsemen, Satan's disciples are studying that religiously because there's a lot of messages in it that they've been pre-warned about to look for. Another one that came out just 2 days ago was a stunning photo show daredevil motorcyclist riding at high speed and at seemingly impossible angles around a frozen lake in Russia. You think of what in the world does this have to do with what we're looking at? This guy going at high speed, riding on ice, making a circle in the ice, riding around a shaman, a magic witch doctor kind of guy. What he's doing is making a magic circle, is what it's called. And this was performed at the Red Bull Circle of Shaman, an event at Baikal Lake in Siberia, Russia. So this is funded, and this guy was funded by Red Bull. It's at the Red Bull Circle of Shaman, and it's deliberately invoking a shaman. This was done deliberately. You just don't go hire out shamans just to stand around and look pretty. And this instantly reminded me, especially of them drawing attention to its uniqueness, but how they were drawing circles and making circles in conjunction with a shaman, the occult, the demonic. It instantly reminded me of the symmetry video related to CERN and how they worked in conjunction with this film that also used the magic circles as well. And we talk about this video in our Time CERN in the Bible video, as well in the articles too as well. Definitely check those out. Link in the description box. But it's all about magic because we talked about this before, alchemy, the blending of magic and science. And that's what CERN is doing. It's not just purely science. They are invoking magic and doing magic rituals as well in conjunction with what they're doing. And we talked about in the film how they show the man's watch, time going backwards, and different magic dances that they were doing at CERN right near the Alice detector, and so much more we talk about it in the video and articles. But they definitely drew attention to magic circles and the white and the dark. And one reason I definitely know there's a darker side to this is because I saw the draft film. When the guy was proposing it to CERN, he made a little demo reel of what he'd like to do. And we talk about that in the articles as well and show it. But they definitely show in that demo reel a magic reel with a human sacrifice in the middle. This was in their demo reel. They know full well what they're doing. They're just going to pass it off to the public as, oh, this is just artistic science, yeah, film at CERN, yeah. No, there's definite magic in the occult involved as well. So to see a magic circle by the Red Bull put out just 2 days ago, reminding us of CERN, which has the particles going at high speed to open an occult doorway with alchemy, definitely caught my attention. We don't have time to dwell on it here, but I've mentioned before the X and O, the ox, referencing the Antichrist. You'll see those symbols a lot, but they're practically the same thing. The Red Bull, which also references Taurus as well, and the Antichrist. The fact that these go together with them making a magic circle definitely tells me they're related. And of course, that's the whole crux of X-Men that we've been talking about with the red and blue and purple and apocalypse, the revealing, and then the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse coming right after that and causing destruction. But X-Men, why are they called X-Men? In American comic books published by Marvel Comics, a mutant is an organism, usually otherwise human, who possesses a genetic trait called an X gene that allows a mutant to naturally develop superhuman powers and abilities. Human mutants are considered to be of the subspecies Homo sapiens superior or simply Homo superior, an evolutionary progeny of Homo sapiens, and are considered the next stage in human evolution. Of course, this is in the comic books. But they even acknowledge the X gene, the genes, the genetics of humans being taken to the next evolutionary level, supposedly, quote unquote. In our last video, we talked about this is the main theme that they're pushing right now, just in the past few days and weeks, of getting ready for purple, getting ready to make a new beast, getting ready to release the beast, going back to the days of Noah, doing the exact same thing that they did then. And tied in with the Jaguar commercial, pointing again to where they've been pointing with a lot of things with the Trafalgar Square and related to time and all that. And that was just a week ago. that the events at Trafalgar Square started, and they released the Jaguar commercial. So then a news thing came out today, just 7 days later, about how Tom Hiddleston shows his soft side as he gushes over a baby leopard on the Late Late Show. So on April 27th, the same guy who's in the Jaguar commercial, he's on this late night show, and they just happen to bring in 2 baby leopards. Again, they're making the visual connection. This guy from the Jaguar commercial, with the new beast and all that, how he was next to a Jaguar, now we're going to put him next to a leopard. Hint, hint. They're reminding you of what they showed you a week ago, and it's another warning, an echo. Keep that in mind. What we showed you a week ago. It's true. It's still coming. This is a warning reminder of what they've already showed just 7 days ago. They're putting out another reminder already because they're reminding the disciples it is coming any day now. So that makes 4 warnings now of them driving home the same message in just a few days because they know any day now. And just 2 days ago on the 25th, an article story came out. Now you can own Alice in Wonderland's Rabbit Hole, stunning seaside home with the secret tunnel that inspired Lewis Carroll's classic. And the house is called Consort House, and that's a interesting reference to the rabbit in Alice as well. But of all stories that could come out within this time frame, they're talking about, oh, you can buy Alice in Wonderland's Rabbit Hole. Hello? That's what we've been talking about. That's the whole messaging they've been pointing out of going down the rabbit hole using CERN technology that even uses Alice as a shadow pattern. They are about to use the key. And that's why there's an Alice Through the Looking Glass film that's getting a lot of notoriety at this time too, with Ezekiel's Wheel and time travel and time is water and stopping time. And that's even in the original Carol story, Stopping Time at Tea Time. And if you haven't yet, definitely watch our video, Time CERN in the Bible, where we talk about time changes from a biblical perspective. And then we also have print articles that you need to read too as well that aren't covered by the video versions. But a lot of references to time just in the past few days, not even a week. They're warning they're about to go down the rabbit hole. Now on April 26th was Alien Day, and it's a reference to the movie series Aliens, and a reference to the numbers 426 which appeared in that famous Alien movie. And that movie is all about xenomorphs, with an X, xenomorphs, the creepy alien species from the Alien movie franchise. And they were just reminding people, and it's all on social media, especially the more nerdy news about science fiction and stuff. Happy Alien Day. They were really drumming up. I was surprised because I had never heard of it before, but they were really drumming it up across a lot of channels, bringing attention primarily to the movie Alien with Sigourney Weaver. And of course, the aliens in that are called xenomorphs, which reminded me of the X-Men. But Sigourney Weaver was also known for another alien role, which several people pointed out to as well, her role in Avatar. And we've come close to talking about this, but the whole concept of Avatar is to have a different body, but your soul interacting and using it as a puppet. That's the whole concept of an avatar. And she had a very large role in this film, so that's what she's known at. So it's interesting to see on Alien Day, which was just 2 days ago, people were mentioning aliens, but also bringing this to mind of Avatar, which she was also known for. And that definitely ties in the whole concept we've been studying lately with blue and purple and red and portraying the better species as the blue. And of course, Avatar was directed by the same director as Titanic, James Cameron. And we've seen a lot of tie-in lately with Titanic and Leo DiCaprio and the Titans and the novel. And we've seen just a lot of reference all of a sudden lately about Titanic. Because these messages are tied together. Titans, Titanic, Titans. That's the whole crux of the parable of Back to the Future. It's all a parable of the Titans, their battle against the Olympians and stopping time and Chronos. So that's why it's all being brought up again now at the historic point that was created. So multiple threads are being brought to the surface now by different events that they reference that recall a broad conditioning that's been laid down over many years. They're suddenly triggering it all now, triggering the anchors that they've laid down and the foundation that they laid down. Now in the movie Avatar, they cloned this alien species of giants and definitely portray them as blue because they're supposedly the better species, and that's how they're portrayed in the film. And the human who's weak and crippled, and you always feel sorry for him, and eventually he gets to have one of these clones as his avatar, and he's so much better off when he can be an avatar and have this beast figure. And of course, they're giants compared to regular humans in the film and everything, but notice they're blue. And that's a reference to the Hindu occult notion of real spiritual avatars being portrayed as blue. And you'll see different goddesses in the Hindu religion portrayed as blue because they're avatars for other beings. That's where the whole concept of avatar comes from, the Hindu. And here they're portraying and acting it all out in a gigantic parable. And they even show the concept of soul transfer, which we talked about just in our last video, that they're making other allusions to, using technology to do that. And even the Bible alludes to that as well with the silver cord. But the whole movie is about upgrading humanity by using avatars and genetics and technology so that they can be better. And you feel sorry for the guy as a human, and it applauds him as he becomes an avatar and eventually makes the full genetic soul transfer to become a true being from this planet. And they definitely make a big play on the purple rain in connection with Mother Earth, their version of Mother Earth, and how eventually the souls are integrated into that as well. It's a massive parable, all about purple rain, the beast and the avatars. And that's essentially what the Antichrist is going to be. He's going to be a Nimrod, Hitler type. He's going to be a beast, though, but he's going to be an avatar. And this is what the world is getting ready for. They know purple rain is about to start. They're just waiting for the harvest. You know that picture that they showed on Mother Earth Day? There's nothing Mother Earthy about that. There's no pandas or sea turtles or, everything that you would expect on a Mother Earth Day or even just a normal Earth Day. There's no trees. There's no green grass. It's just a field that's been chopped down. This was deliberately chosen for their Mother Earth Day because it represents what it means to them. Purple rain's about to start. Their judgment-free zone. They're just waiting for the harvest. Of course, in the film, all the bad humans are escorted elsewhere off the planet, and the planet's a whole lot better with all the humans gone. And that's the whole crux of Revelation, is the mark of the beast is you worship the beast and take his mark and become a son of Satan, or you will die. They're not going to hold anybody down and force them to take the mark of the beast. It involves worship. You either decide to worship the beast and be like them, or they will kill you. If you don't want to be like them, they're not going to keep you around. And they're acting this out here of, let's get rid of all these lesser species of human, ship them off, get rid of them, get them off the planet, because they're getting in the way of our progress and our evolution, and they're just making a royal pain out of everything. They don't want to change. And that draws us back to the Hindu god Shiva at CERN. The whole concept there of they're working on the technology to facilitate that avataring, but that also comes with destruction and death and portals and all that. That's what they're working on. So they had this Happy Alien Day 2 days ago, which brought to mind the Alien franchise, but then also brought to mind the Avatar franchise that she was also in and played a big role in, and then ties in with a lot of other things we've been seeing. And this also came out the day after DNA Day as well. No coincidence there. So it is no surprise then that today they made an announcement of their upcoming Alien Covenant movie. Boy, that sounds familiar. This is a sneak peek that they released today from the upcoming Alien Covenant movie. And they just got everyone hyped about Alien yesterday, and now they're releasing, oh, by the way, an Alien Covenant. This is a patch. There's a reason why they're dropping this. And of course, the whole Alien Covenant movie is about the crew of the Prometheus on a ship called the Covenant. Let's take a look at this patch. Building Better World. Covenant. Clear reference to the Ark of the Covenant as well. Now, when the Bible says that the Antichrist has come onto the scene and going to make a covenant with many, it's not talking about a normal human political leader. It's talking about a beast, like the Bible tells us about. Definitely check out our video, The Antichrist Returns, for more on the Bible study on that. The enemy knows what time it is, and that's why they've been putting out all these key words. Covenant, covenant with the future, covenant. We're in a race against time. Then just a few days later, they just released this, oh, the Alien Covenant, here's a patch about it. This is what they're getting ready for. The purple rain, the purple covenant. An upheaval, a massive change is required now. One that leads to a new collective consciousness, a new collective evolution of the human race, and inspired and enabled by a sense of urgency from all of you, he said. By Leonardo DiCaprio, who's from Titanic, the Titans. And all this messaging going on in just the past few days. Back on the 23rd, they've been making a lot of references to time and princes and kings. Back on the 23rd, Prince George stays up past his bedtime to greet Obama. Prince George, Prince William, Prince Harry, and they're making a mention of old time. He stayed up later in time than he normally would, but definitely drawing attention to the princes. The princes are getting more attention than this, and there's 3 mentions of princes here. They have the hexagonal coffee table thing referencing CERN, and the dog, which was a gift from Obama, is not accidental. That's a reference to the series that we talked about just the other day in the Time to Wake Up video. The most important things in this picture is not Obama, it's the dog and the princes. And even Kate had a very special dress that combined red and blue without combining them to show the combination and the coming together of them. It's a very unique dress. So it was very suspicious that she was wearing that at this meeting of all the princes together for dinner right around the dog star. And of course they made a big to-do in the media of, oh, Prince George, he's riding this white horse that Obama gave him. They're drawing attention to the white horse, the portal, the dog, the princes, and the dress too as well. Because they're getting ready for the rider on the white horse to come through the gates. The X and O, the sun god, Apollo, Apollyon. They've been working on this for a long time. The mystery of iniquity. This is what is commemorated every year on December 25th, the return of the Nimrod type. That's what the entire Christmas tree stands for and represents. And we talked about that in our The Season is the Reason video. That's a big reason why the Rockefeller tree is right next to Prometheus, right above ice, fire and ice, the blue and red acted out there. Every year, the December 25th events commemorate the return of Nimrod, the return of Apollo, the revealing of the Antichrist. That's what they do in remembrance of him. And that's why Scripture says, stay away from it. Don't commemorate that. And we talked about how that was the crux of the triumphal arch at Trafalgar Square and references to the triumphal entry and the palms and all that. And they're putting out the warnings now that he's about to make an entrance. They know Christ's second coming is any day now. They know that once he is revealed, then the restraints will be removed and the son of perdition will then be revealed. And they know we are running out of time, and they've been driving that home and driving home how it's connected to a lot of the patterns and shadows that they're showing around London, which is right near Greenwich Mean Time too as well. It all goes back to time. They are in a race against time. So it wasn't surprising that yesterday they made a big news announcement of, oh, we're going to have to turn off Big Ben so we can do some refurbishment. Britain's most famous clock tower is to fall silent so that urgent repair work can be carried out. And they're going to be shutting it down next year, but they put out the announcement now, today, right in this window, when we're in the Joshua Sun Moon time period. They just put out this mention of, oh, we're going to have to stop Big Ben. We're going to have to stop time. We're going to have to do this. This wasn't coincidence. And the same day that this clock-stopping news article came out, another article came out, Islamic State demolishes iconic clock church in Mosul. They blew up this famous clock tower in Mosul, which is Nineveh. Does that ring some bells? So you have 2 stories about clock towers, both clocks being stopped, both on the same day. This isn't coincidence. They're telling you time is about to be changed. Time is about to stop. And in our Time to Wake Up video, we talked about this is what they've been showing for a long time. The gates, especially the triumphal gate at Palmyra, is definitely connected. That's a signal that Satan's disciples have been watching for and looking for because it's connected to it's time to wake up. Satan is telling his disciples, you need to wake up. We're about to change time. We're about to be unrestrained. And the whole crux of that video was a lucid dream. The guy was aware that he was dreaming. He was awake enough to know he was dreaming. And that's the world today. They are awake. They're going through their daily motions, but they're still living in a dream world. And that's what Jesus described the world as would be when he came back. He said they're going to be living as though life goes on. They're going to be living in a dream world. I'm going to be disrupting their dream world. I'm going to be taking a 2x4 to the head and waking them up. But most of the world is going to be asleep and in a dream world when Christ comes back. They're going to be living as though life goes on, not changing anything about their life, not even aware that judgment is looming right over them. And the warning signs of the Antichrist triumphal entry are all over the place. You have to be asleep to miss this stuff. The mayor of London unveiled it there in Trafalgar Square the same day as the Jaguar commercial, all about this villain from the Avengers show that we talked about, giving the message to release the cats. And in the blue and purple videos, we talked about how the Avengers, that's the whole concept of what the mystery of iniquity is doing and working toward. They're working to avenge what happened at Noah's flood. They want to rebuild Satan's race, his seed, get rid of humanity. They came very close to doing that before, but they're going to try it one more time. That's the whole concept behind Marvel's Avengers. And they even prominently put in your face, Marvel. They tell you the whole story from what the Bible tells you, and people think it's just a story. So the same day as that Jaguar commercial that used that prominent actor from the Avengers film, they portray the same thing with the illuminated pyramids and going out and creating a new beast and creating a new race and new generation as the master plan. They're telling it straight up to you. And they even tell you the setting is all related to Trafalgar Square and Big Ben. We studied this already. And then, of course, the Independence Day Resurgence film, which is again referencing the avenging, the coming back of Satan's seed. We talked about how even in this trailer they tied in with the events at Trafalgar Square and showing going down the river of time, Big Ben, the Eye of Apollo, demonstrating it and walking you through it visually right there. They've been drawing attention to this in just the past few days, multiple times, because they know this is the time, this is about to happen. And our attention collectively in the world has been drawn to Trafalgar Square over the past few days. With the church at Trafalgar Square, the pillar, the dome, the triumphal arch with the keystone, signaling almost to completion, almost done. The mystery of iniquity is almost completed. They got all the key pieces in place. The stage is set. They are ready, but they know there is just a little bit more to do. We talked about the palm connection to Palmyra, the arch, but also to Nelson with his motto and palm on his crest as well. In the 2012 Olympic countdown, using Trafalgar Square and red as well, mentioning that a lot has been pointing to this over periods of time, but also a lot more recently. But then even the connection with purple and Prince, whose name is Nelson, also strongly hinting at this time too as well, pointing back to Nelson. And during the 2012 Olympics, they had him decked out with the torch of Apollo to bring attention to the Olympics Games, and I think also connecting him and what's happening there to the Olympics and all the symbolism that they were doing then, and then also, of course, to Apollo. And so it's significant that we are at this time again with the torch, with the prayers invoking to Apollo that they did as well, commemorating what the Titans did. But I was still wondering, what is so special about Trafalgar Square? Why are they drawing attention here? You know, of all places, all squares around the world, why did they bring it here? Certainly they pointed out St. Martin's in the Field Church, and there's lions here at the Four Corners. That's interesting too, in the dome. And it's in line with Big Ben and the other nearby structures, but why here? And I was a little puzzled because on the surface, there's not much there. There's a pillar, there's Nelson on top, and other than the lions down below and the battle scenes, there's nothing that really jumps out and says, hey, this is a very important occult site, you know, or something like that. But the Lord reminded me today that there's shadows and patterns beneath the surface many times. And He reminded me of Zechariah 11:17. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm, and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. So if you wanted to pick someone who embodied the idol shepherd, Apollyon, you'd have to find a statue with someone whose arm is clean dried up and has been smitten by a sword. Hello, Nelson. So it's very fitting that we see him on top of the phallic symbol and right across from the womb and how they lined up the arch, and we talked about that. So here we have a guy with his arm clean dried up, and his eyes are just blank. There aren't even pupils and irises on them. They're just all blank. But then I was reading some more. What's so special about Nelson's column? And one thing that stuck out to me was the Corinthian capital is made of bronze elements cast from cannons salvaged from the wreck of HMS Royal George at the Woolwich Arsenal Foundry. It is based on the Temple of Mars altar in Rome. Oh, well, this is an interesting connection, especially with Mars in the celestial skies right now, and they've been promoting red and warning of war. So the Corinthian column at the very top of this column is made out of bronze, and it's based on columns at the Temple of Mars. Well, let's learn more about that. The Forum of Augustus, which includes the Temple of Mars altar. Octavian vowed to build a temple honoring Mars, the Roman god of war, during the Battle of Philippi. After winning the battle with the help of Mark Antony and Lepidus, Octavian had avenged the assassin murder of his adoptive father, Julius Caesar. And so because of that, because he won the victory, he built this temple to Mars altar. So the whole reason behind building this temple to Mars, the Roman god of war, was because he had avenged the death of his father. Does this theme not sound familiar? Avengers, tied to war. And that's what the Nelson's column directly references, and it's directly modeled after the columns at this very specific temple. The temple itself today is in complete ruins, so they couldn't do anything here necessarily and draw a lot of attention to it here because it's in ruins. So the next best place to do it would be Trafalgar Square, where you can add in a lot more symbolism and tie-ins as well too. Get a lot more attention on the global stage as well. So the Temple of Mars Ultor. What in the world is Ultor? It's another way of saying the Temple of Mars the Avenger. Well, that makes sense. You have a column at Trafalgar Square with a man who has a withered arm on it, whose motto is about the palm and victory, and the palm, the phoenix, is on his very crest. The column he's standing on has the capital modeled directly after the one at the Temple to Mars. Ultor, the Avenger, directly referencing the Avengers. And the same day they put up a triumphal arch from Palmyra in front of this arch. They had the prominent actor from the Avengers play in a Jaguar commercial about releasing the beast, creating a beast. All of that is tied into this location. Mars, the god of war, the Avenger. These are all tied together. That's what the whole red and blue and purple is all about. Avenging what happened during Noah's flood. That is why they were drawing attention to Trafalgar Square. But then the Lord also reminded me of something that happened back in 2012. A news mention was made that they had to shut down Trafalgar Square for filming because they needed to land a helicopter in Trafalgar Square. And they remarked this is the first time that they had ever shut down Trafalgar Square. The entire square, traffic all around it, they shut down the entire square, which caused a lot of trouble for people, but they shut down the entire square. They said this is the first time it's ever happened. This is the first time a helicopter's ever landed here. So it got a lot of attention at the time. And this was for the Edge of Tomorrow movie, which they reminded us about just 20 days ago that they were making a sequel about. So 20 days ago, they reminded us, oh, remember the Edge of Tomorrow film? We're making a sequel, but Edge of Tomorrow, Trafalgar Square. That's why they made the mention. The same day as the Alchemy Mercury and the Google Gate. A few days after that, Allstate Mayhem and everything. But they dropped that hint there, Edge of Tomorrow. Remember Trafalgar Square? That's coming up in a few days. It was a tell that, oh yeah, we need to refresh our memory on the connections between the Edge of Tomorrow, Trafalgar Square, and the context and the content and the messages of them. And we talked before of the Edge of Tomorrow, of this is conditioning to get people used to the tribulation events described in Revelation, of how time will loop. That's the whole context of the Edge of Tomorrow. Looping time, dying and coming back again. And that's a direct reference to in Revelation how it mentions that people will want to die because the events will be so bad, but they won't be able to die. Why? Because they keep coming back. It's looping. They keep coming back. And there's been other conditioning and a whole lot of other time looping movies, Groundhog Day and other things like that. Get people used to it so when it happens, they're not going to run to the Bible. They'll automatically think, wow, this is just like the movies. And they'll be looking for a secular approach. And they'll also be open to accepting any solution that is being offered in the midst of all that chaos. But The Edge of Tomorrow, which was a very popular movie too as well with Tom Cruise, got a lot of attention. Definitely got into people's consciousness. But you can tell already just from this poster, which was at Trafalgar Square, big connections between time and Trafalgar Square. And we've talked about it with Paris events and the Louvre as well. But the whole movie, Edge of Tomorrow, starts at Trafalgar Square. The opening scenes, you see a helicopter flying over the city and heading straight toward Trafalgar Square. Here's the helicopter. But it's making a beeline toward Trafalgar Square, flying up the River Thames along that, bringing your attention to the Eye of Apollo again, Big Ben time, the River of Time, and then pulling your attention toward Trafalgar Square, where it's all going to come together. But then they show a scene before it gets there, the helicopter making a hard left at Big Ben, and that's to draw your attention to Big Ben. Now again, the helicopter's right here flying straight toward Trafalgar Square. It's making a beeline toward Trafalgar Square. There should be no reason to make a hard left. They're doing this on purpose. It's directly connected to the Edge of Tomorrow, the looping time, and Trafalgar Square. Because then the helicopter comes into Trafalgar Square, and then you see the church that they've been making direct mention to about the church leaving in the Alice trailers. Helicopter comes in, it's from the Royal Air Force. Prince, hello, King. Direct references to that. A king is coming onto the scene, and he lands right in the middle of Trafalgar Square, right between the dome and Nelson's column on the exact same spot where they set up the triumphal arch. The exact same spot. Making his grand entrance right at the beginning of the Edge of Tomorrow film. This is what the whole film's about. The events that are going to be started at Trafalgar Square. And of course his name is Cage. He's just being released from his cage. He's now unrestrained. He's coming onto the scene. That's what this whole parable is about. We've talked before about the connections to the Louvre, and you could even talk about the flooding of Paris that they portray in the movie too, as well as time, water, and time. But this is the whole concept of the Edge of Tomorrow film. Live, die, repeat. Live, die, repeat. Looping time. Water as time. Destruction, how it's all tied to all this, but how Trafalgar Square is the rallying point of all these events. And we talk about this whole concept from a biblical perspective in our poster and video, Revelation Spiral of Time, link in the description box. But this is what Satan has been getting his disciples ready for and reminded them about just a few days ago that this is about to start. Keep your eye on Trafalgar Square because there's going to be a lot more messages right after Trafalgar Square. Last minute messages. All of this is about to start. And when the helicopter lands in Trafalgar Square, you can see in the background there a boy on a golden horse. A statue there. And that was set up there during the 2012 Olympics. Funded by the mayor of London, the same guy who unveiled the Palmyra Arch. This was a large sculpture, 4.1 meter high bronze sculpture of a boy on a rocking horse unveiled at Trafalgar Square. And it was polished up real good so it looked gold and it was nicknamed the Golden Boy. But its proper title was Powerless Structures. Powerless Structures, figure 101 is a sculpture of a boy astride his rocking horse. A child has been elevated to the status of historical hero, though there is not yet a history to commemorate, only a future to hope for. Cast in bronze, the work references the traditional monuments in the square, but with its golden shine, it celebrates generations to come. Powerless Structures. And of course, notice the XO bolt head that they made on this sign too as well. But the mayor of London, Boris Johnson, who helped get it into place, said it seemed fitting to have such a gleaming talisman to watch over our city during this fantastic Olympic year. Wow. Proud to have a gleaming talisman right while they're having the 2012 Olympics. The Antichrist coming onto the scene. There's going to be a lot of powerless structures in the world when he comes on the scene that will hand over power to him. And the 10 kings who are given power briefly when he comes onto the scene, they're the powerless structures. They can't do anything. They can't resist him. The whole world marvels after the beast. Who can make war against the beast? They're just riding their little rocking horses compared to the one who's about to come in on the white horse, and the red horse, and the black horse, and the pale horse. But it was there deliberately when the filming of Edge of Tomorrow was filmed, which happened right after the Olympics, by the way. But the statue was still up, tying the two together. And it reminded me instantly of Prometheus, who's always portrayed as a very youthful figure as well, who's in Rockefeller Center, tied to the Nimrod commemorations there, fire over ice as well. But this golden boy, and even when you look at the two statues, there's a lot of similarities between them two. It has his arm up in a slightly awkward pose, but very reminiscent of the Prometheus statue, just without the fire. Some golden figure, who Apollo is often referenced to, is about to come onto the scene, riding his horse. And of course they remarked in the behind the scenes of Edge of Tomorrow that they did their filming landing there on the square 4 days before they set up the Christmas tree, the Nimrod tree, to commemorate Nimrod, right on the exact same spot, just like Rockefeller Square. So I have a column related to Palm, the Phoenix, the god of war, Mars, the Avenger, directly linked to the Avengers, Jaguar commercial on the same day, time dimensions, creating a new beast, releasing the beast, again tied to London, time, Trafalgar, Big Ben, and then directly tied to the Edge of Tomorrow, time, looping time, live, die, repeat. All these messages are what's being referenced when they're pointing to Trafalgar Square right now. That a rider on his horse is about to come onto the scene to avenge Noah's flood. And in the same Avengers film is a direct reference to the CERN technology, which was used to open the portals, which directly reminds us of Alice, which they're also reminding us about at this time too. And time, and Ezekiel's wheel, and that time is about to be stopped. And all of these messages in less than 2 weeks. Because they know what time it is. They know things are about to happen. They've been planning for this particular time for a long time. And they've been warning their disciples back in 2012 that this is what was going to happen. Getting ready for May Day. May Day. They've been putting out the warnings that the Phoenix is about to come onto the scene, and they're already starting to celebrate the purple rain. They know there's about to be a harvest. They know there's about to be Jacob's ladder. There's about to be Joshua and Joshua's long day. They know what time it is. They know that they're about to be unrestrained and take their vengeance out on God's creatures and create a new world through an upheaval. They know they're in a race against time. They only have a certain amount of time, and they know they are at the threshold of it. They know that they are at the edge of being unrestrained, and they are already putting down the warnings, the last-minute warnings. There's about to be a covenant with the future. There's about to be a covenant. There's the outlines of a new and better world right on their horizon. We are on the edge of Trafalgar. We're on the edge of a harvest. We're on the edge of a purple rain. An upheaval and massive change is required now, one that leads to a new collective consciousness, a new collective evolution of the human race, inspired and enabled by a sense of urgency from all of you, he said. The world leaders are selling their nations and their people up the river, betraying them. They're going to hand over power to the beast. Revelation 17. The Bible tells us that they're conspiring to do this. But people are asleep. People live in a dream world. People don't want to wake up and change how they are living to make themselves ready. So when Christ returns, he will find them unready. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. That is a command. That is our standing orders. Be ye also ready. Occupy till I come, he said. It's not enough to know Christ is coming. We have to make ourselves ready. The 5 foolish virgins in the parable of the 10 virgins, they knew the bridegroom was coming. But when the call went out, they couldn't rise up and meet him because they weren't ready. They actually went the opposite direction. What about you? The warning calls, the trumpet calls, the midnight cry has gone out. The bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. Now is the time to change our life, to make ourselves ready, to know what time it is, to wake up, to cast off the works of darkness, and to put on the armor of light, so we are shining bright at this hour. Be ye also ready. On our website, in our Exodus 2 section, we have a lot of resources that I handpicked out for you related toward how we can be ready. This is our standing order. This is our command. When Christ returns, will he find us obeying this command? If not, we will be left behind with the hypocrites and the unbelievers. But if we rise up and we shine bright and serve Christ first and highest above all else, then we can look forward to, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Be ye also ready. Maranatha.